Hi, Keith Adams from Perry Journalism. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, Keith.
Welcome to Perry High School.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how did you get your start in writing?
I got my start in writing right after I graduated from college, and suddenly realized I was a grown-up and had to have a career. I wasn't nearly as well organized as you are, but I knew this was something I really wanted to do. So I started putting ideas for stories together, along with the visual side of it, because I always wanted to be both an artist and a writer, and the world of picture books was the perfect place for me to make some progress if I was able to do so. And I was really lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and was given some work by a New York publisher when I was still in my early 20s, and never looked back. I've been doing it for 50 years.
What kind of influence did books have on your childhood?
Books had a tremendous influence on my childhood. I was an avid reader, and it was a great way to break outside the kind of claustrophobic confines of the family, which for me was very necessary to do. And through the books, I saw a whole other world of fascinating people and places and circumstances and adventures. And I collected books. I had my own little library in my room, and I mowed lawns and raked leaves and babysat and took care of people's dogs and did everything I could to make extra money. And I usually went out and bought books when I had that money, and I still have some of those books after all these years.
Would you say your writing style changed much when you attended the Rhode Island School of Design?
Everything changed when I attended the Rhode Island School of Design. It was an extraordinarily positive experience for me, because for the first time I found myself in a place where I was surrounded by people who were interested in the creative arts just as I had been, and instead of being sort of an unusual person in the class, I was with lots of people who had the same aspirations and passions and were excited by a lot of the same kinds of things, and wonderful teachers. And I was really lucky because I won a fellowship. I was there on a scholarship at Rhode Island School of Design, but then I won a fellowship in addition that sent me to Italy for my senior year. And going to another country and learning another language and experiencing a culture where the arts were really very, very highly valued, and sort of having a chance to remake myself as a person and create a whole new life that was based upon just exactly who I hoped to be and thought I was, and with so much support from the Italian community that I became a part of. It was just I can never thank the college enough for making that opportunity possible.
Why did the idea of children's books in particular appeal to you?
Children's books was the direction that I really wanted to concentrate on in terms of my creative energies, because I believe very strongly about the importance of education. I think that children are, and the education of children, the nurturing of children, and helping children to broaden their horizons and to appreciate themselves as unique individuals is one of the most important responsibilities that we have as adults, as citizens, as caring members of the human community, and knowing how important books have been to me in my life, and how much I love the idea of telling stories with words and images, how satisfying I found that to be. A great way to spend every day and even get paid a bit for it. I really wanted to participate as wholeheartedly as I could in the whole world of the education of children and enriching their lives. And my particular inclination to do it through books was something that gave me an enormous amount of personal satisfaction.
What source or sources, you kind of answered this already, but provided your inspiration? Would you say it was your childhood and the children's education that you wanted to influence? Or
right.
Was there anything,
That was certainly a very large part of it, and the books that I read, and also being read to. I had two grandmothers who enjoyed reading aloud to their grandchildren, and that was a very positive experience for me, because it was a way to bond with them and through them through that reading aloud to the larger family as well. And I realized the magic of sharing stories, and how I think it's sort of part of our DNA as a species to celebrate stories and to share stories, and sharing of stories is a way for people to build bridges and bonds to each other, which has been happening in every culture and civilization since the dawn of time. I think as I say, it's just part of who we are. We we derive a certain sense of fulfillment and completion, I think, when we're exchanging stories with someone. So it's a very important form of intimacy that in which there are no losers and there are no victims, that both parties prosper, both the listener and the storyteller, and then very often the roles are reversed and the storyteller becomes the listener, and that sharing of stories, they build bridges to each other.
When you get an idea for a book, do you start with the writing or the pictures?
Because I'm both an author and an illustrator, and I love the idea of visual communication as well as verbal communication, and I think both are equally important, I try to, right from the beginning, put the words and the pictures together. And when the story is just almost sometimes just a series of fragments, fragmentary ideas, a few characters, an ending or a beginning, you never know where a story will start to evolve from, start to spin together. I try to always keep thinking of words and images and how they will support each other and interact in a way that will make an arresting experience for the reader as they're going from page to page.
What is your favorite book that you have written?
Whenever I'm asked that question, and I visit schools a lot, and I've been asked that question for years by kids and also by adults, by adult audiences, I tell them making a book is like making a friend. A book grows like a friendship, and each friendship is different in the way it evolves and the way it appeals and interacts with different sides of who you are as a person. So amongst my closest friends, I can't choose a favorite because each one's different, each one's special, and I feel the same way about the books. I love them all the best.
Very good. What is the best part for you about writing children's stories?
The best part for me about writing children's stories is I got a chance to fulfill a childhood ambition, which was to spend most of my adult time at a job that I would really enjoy doing. As a kid, I noticed that a lot of adults didn't like their work. They had chosen for financial reasons or for pressure from the family, or there were reasons they had chosen their jobs which were not based upon real self-knowledge of who they were and what they would find fulfilling. And because I had seen the warning signs when I was a kid and saw lots of miserable adults in my neighborhood trudging off to work every day and resenting it and yearning for the vacation that was still 9 months away and living for it, I thought, that is not the way I want to live. I want to be a guy who likes to get up in the morning and do a job that really gives him a sense of fulfillment and fun.
So you probably receive criticism, as most authors do.
I do, yeah, lots.
I like your books. Do you find that positive or more negative criticism is more beneficial or influential?
Well, positive criticism is always nice because then you know you communicated your ideas and thoughts and feelings and images successfully. But you learn a lot from the negative criticism too, and I think it's important to pay attention to it. And I appreciate it, and because it's made me take a closer look at my work and myself. And I think that helps you to grow. If you're constantly surrounded in a world of yes and euphoric support, sometimes you become complacent and you don't grow. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it becomes stale and boringly repetitive. And so I think criticism can kind of snap you out of that and help you to correct a direction in the course that you've been following and get onto a more adventuresome ground and more creative and productive ground. But also it makes you rethink certain issues. And I've been dealing with one in the last couple of years. I did a book called Pinkerton Behave 35 years ago, and in it there was a caricature of a burglar, and he was supposed to be funny. He was sort of the stereotypical burglar, and he was carrying an enormous firearm, a great big pistol, and I got letters as the years went on from parents and occasionally from librarians and teachers and sometimes in personal confrontations, saying that this was an inappropriate and rather scary and not a constructive thing to have put into the book. And at first I defended it and I said, well, it was meant to be funny and it was meant to be, just to be part of this was a very one-dimensional bad guy, and that was just part of his get-up and part of who he was. But then as the years passed and gun violence became a very serious problem in our society, something I'd been really unaware of as a kid, because we all had cap guns and squirt guns and we were always blasting each other off the map in our neighborhood games and whatnot. But I realized it was these people these other adults had a point, and they were uncomfortable sharing the book with their kids, and because the kids would ask questions about it, and then in the news there was terrible things like the incident in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, where I actually had lived for 35 years, and in the school that my kids had attended, that where I'd frequently been a guest author. And I thought, no, I'm comfortable with this book now. And so I talked to my editor about it, and the publisher agreed for the 35th anniversary I could rewrite it and re-illustrate it if I was willing to do so. And I said I would be eager to do so. And so I redid the whole book and eliminated the big ugly pistol, but I also had a chance to inject new humor and new character development and different things that took advantage of the fact that I did the first one 35 years ago, or was published 35 years ago, and because hopefully you keep learning and growing as an artist, and I was able to improve the book as a result of redoing it. So it turned out to be a plus situation all the way around.
I really like the book Is Your Mama a Llama?
Oh, thank you.
What was your inspiration particularly for that book?
And well, I'm the illustrator of that book, and not the author. And I illustrate lots of books by other authors. And in this case, this was a book that Deborah had written. It was her very first book, and as far as I know, her only book. And she wrote it as a very young woman, young mother, for her to read aloud to her little kid. She was a single mom. I've never met Deborah Guarino because I frequently don't meet the authors, but I've had a little correspondence with her, and I was offered the book by a publisher, which is how it happens. That, as I say, we don't meet the illustrators and authors usually don't meet. But I really appealed to me because I thought this is a really great book for a very young audience. It's very reassuring, very warm, and naive and rather lovely, And so I accepted the invitation to be the illustrator, and it's a book that's been translated into lots of languages and been around forever. So I'm glad to know that you actually it's sold well over 1 million copies, several million now. It's really had reached a wide audience, which is very satisfying.
I like the Pinkerton books too.
Oh, thanks.
The book Snowflakes Fall.
Right.
Is that a big book for you?
Yes, very big book for me because it was done after the Sandy Hook tragedy. In fact, as a reaction to the Sandy Hook tragedy, because I had, as I mentioned, lived in that community for 35 years and raised my children there, and been active in the library and the school community, and the school was the Sandy Hook Elementary School was actually a long walk, but a walk from my house. I spent a lot of time there. So when the news came that someone whose house had been built after I moved, but it was I walked in the fields where his house was built. The tragic young perpetrator many times, and the fact that after we moved out, his family moved in, and the dark shadows descended, and to the point where he perpetrated that horrendous crime. I somehow wanted to. It just took all the wind out of my sails. It was the news was so depressing and so upsetting that I thought, well, I have to respond somehow, and so. It turned out this was a case where I collaborated with a friend, Patricia McLaughlin, is an author, also an NCBLA board member, and she felt the same way, and we decided to do a book together as a response to that. In Snowflakes Fall, she wrote the verses in one night, and I contributed to the text a bit, which I often do, but it's usually through the editor, rarely through the author. But in this case, she said, let's do this together. Any ideas you might have about the verses, especially because you lived there, I'd love to hear those. And so some of the book is site specific because I knew the town so well, but it really was a reaction to the fact that we as a society have got to revere our children and keep our children safe and cherish our children. And each child is different, and each child is special. And the loss of 21st graders in a morning at the hands of a person who was so dark and deranged, and also needed help from our society that was not forthcoming. He should have been helped too. And the fact that he was driven to such a terrible thing. It's just something we have to get our minds around, Mm-hmm. And that book is an effort to slow everything down, which books do, and give us a chance to reevaluate and appreciate and again change direction,
You said you write your books to help influence children in positive ways and help them grow.
Right.
What has writing done for you besides making a career for yourself?
Well, I think writing has made my life wonderful. I'm so grateful that I was able to, have been able and still able to spend every day thinking of ideas that, for stories that I can put into book form and work with wonderful people at the publishing houses. Most of the people in the children's book community, in fact, are all dedicated to a single goal of enriching the lives of children. And so, and we all, I think, consider ourselves on the whole very fortunate to be able to spend our time interacting with each other, and for us each book is a new adventure, a chance to share different ideas and thoughts and feelings and images, and then if you travel to schools as I have all these years, you see the teachers and librarians using the books with the kids, and the kids tell you what they think about the books, and again both positive and negative, and referencing your earlier question, and so it's just been such an agreeable and uplifting way to spend, so many years.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Keith. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you
talk
too. Glad you could come.